Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, lovely people, depending on where you are watching us from in this beautiful world of ours. And this morning, I've got a very special guest, Jodie Atkinson. And I have to tell you a very quick story before I hand over the microphone. Because Jodie and I have been connected through a really, really special friend of mine. I'm going to give Rowan a shout out. Rowan, beautiful speed painter, artist, amazing speaker. Her and I happen to live in the same town, which is such a blessing. And she sent me a message and said, "You have to talk to Jodie." If Rowan says that, I fully trust it. You and I connected, we had a chat, and we both knew what Rowan meant. And here we are for our live interview on Unsilenced Grief. Welcome, Jodie. Would you do me the honor to introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Marie. My name
Oh,
is Jodie, and I am a grief recovery specialist, author, and cabaret artist. And I specialize in the space of loss and grief. Yeah.
what a combination. Like, if you just say that, grief specialist, author, and cabaret, like how does that fit into grief? This is such an amazing story, and I know a bit about your backstory already. So I think for our audience sake, maybe we start with your story first, Jodie. Can you share a little bit about what and how did you get into the topic of grief and then write a cabaret about it?
Yeah. So I, in 2019, learned a thing or two about grief the hard way. And that was when my husband was diagnosed with metastatic pancreatic cancer. He was stage 4. And out of nowhere, because he was healthy, fit, active, he was walking the dog 5Ks every day,
Mm,
helping friends move furniture and do all sorts of odd jobs and things like that. And as I said, very healthy and active. And then suddenly presented with back pain and um, a strange indigestion, which
mm.
became apparent that something wasn't right. He went to the doctor, and long story short, that's how we learned that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
And he died just 37 days later.
First of all, my heart goes out to you, Jodie, because something like that, no one ever expects this. These are the stories that we hear, and we always think that happens to other people, right? Like
Yeah.
I've felt pretty much the same thing, I never ever expected this to happen in my life. And then when we look back, we look at our story, and it's such a like, there was such a picturesque, beautiful relationship, young, fit, healthy. You don't see it coming. And
Mm.
37 days. I mean, a cancer diagnosis is a shock in the best of days, but getting it as a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, that really changes the story quite dramatically. Can you share a little bit about how did you even handle receiving those news? And as much as you want to share about your story, I'm not going to ask you any details, but whatever you want to share about that,
It
I'll leave
it
that up to you.
it was such a shock because the symptoms are so vague. And
Mm,
you think of back, like with back pain when you're in your 50s, like you know, we all feel a little bit of aches and pains occasionally, and
yeah.
you don't suspect that it's cancer. And the usual remedies of going and having some physio or a massage or seeing the chiropractor, which usually resolve those issues, when they don't work,
Mm,
you're kind of thinking, well, what's going on underneath this?
yeah.
And you're not thinking, oh, my first point of call was to go and see the doctor, when historically these things have helped manage these sorts of
What made
problems.
him reach out to a doctor then? What was the difference? Where is it? Is
When the
this,
indigestion started to affect him,
yeah.
because it was like, this is really weird.
Mhm.
Um, and he would we were talking about it a lot, and I said, go and get checked out. Like,
Mm.
it can't hurt to go and see a doctor. And that was kind of the thing, because last minute, why not? Like, that's the I don't know. We've tried all these other options, and this
Yeah.
this is they haven't helped.
Mm.
So um, plunged quickly into a world of medical appointments, seeing doctors, medications, treatments. Life as we knew it changed. I don't even know what was important to me at that
Mm.
time. I can't even remember what was going on for us prior to
Yeah.
that because that suddenly everything just shifted. Um, and we were told we had 6 to 8 months with treatment.
Oh.
So he made the decision, and I supported that, of course, because that was what seemed to be the most um, appealing option. And yeah, things deteriorated rapidly from there. So it just became, I likened it to a deadly game of chess. Everything we tried, we
Mm.
were getting cut off. And it was
Mm.
like, checkmate, you know. Um,
Yeah.
we exhausted everything we could possibly do in the time that we had. Yeah. So grief started early in that process. You know, the diagnosis from that moment, it was like we're grieving everything we had, we're
Yeah.
grieving everything that has been lost already. Um, I didn't want to think about anything too far in the future. I just
Mm.
couldn't bring myself to think that far ahead.
It's
It,
the anticipatory grief that a lot of people don't really,
mm,
well, anticipate, pardon the pun. It's so weird to explain it with the same
yeah,
word, but there's
yeah,
really something that nobody ever prepares you for a diagnosis like that, let alone the grief that you already start going through when you receive this diagnosis. And
yeah.
I have also, like with all the stories that have been shared with me that I was honored to hold space for over the years, I have noticed that it is quite a black and white scenario. I've never seen much of a gray zone in such that either people decide to, hey, let's talk about everything that could happen. You know, I want you to be prepared if something happens to me. And others that go like, I don't want to talk about it at all. This is not an option for me. I don't even want to think about it. Where did you fit into that? Did you talk about the what if scenario, or did you just go like, no, we're just going to stay day by day. We're not even going to talk about it and entertain the idea?
I think looking back, I think it was very much about where we were at day to day.
Mm.
There were times when I just broke down and had a moment, and he would comfort me. Um,
Mm.
and and you know, other people around us were reacting in their way because everybody's grieving in their own way, right?
Yeah.
And he said, you know, he found it hard to deal with certain family members in their way that they were responding. And
Hmm.
I said to him, well, I'm doing similar behavior at times. He says, yes,
Hmm.
but you don't get stuck in that space. We have a moment, we cry it out, we pick up and we get back on
Yeah.
with it. He said, you're not staying in that space the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
does that make sense?
It
He,
makes so much
you
sense
know,
because
that
some people,
balancing.
they
Yeah.
just dip into this emotional hole, I want to call it, and there is this sympathy and the falling apart. And it's almost like they drag everyone around them with them when they get too close. And
Mm,
other people go through the motions,
yeah.
the emotions, and you seem to be one of those, going through it. And I think it's absolutely normal to fall apart and cry when you see what's happening with your husband and the pain and the torture he's going through,
Mm,
to not just sit there happy, chirpy, and supportive the entire time. You're human. And I think
yeah.
showing all of the emotions might be very human and very helpful because it keeps it super honest rather than trying to keep a brave face all the time. But
It
as your husband said, you didn't get stuck there. And I think that's really important.
yeah, it was kind of like releasing the pressure, you know, like the kettle boiling, you know,
Mm.
having that pressure eliminated meant okay, we can get back to thinking
Mm.
clearly again, rationally. What's the next thing we need to get on with, rather than feeling like you've just got to bottle it all up and hold it
Yeah.
in, or just completely tap out and not cope at all.
Jodie, I think there's such beauty though as well in it says a lot about you guys as a couple and about your love and your relationship to be able to show those true emotions and for your husband even in that state to be there for you and hold you, that is such a blessing in disguise, I find, if I may say so. It's just really beautiful to have those moments as well of complete raw realness because it was very raw and real either way, but to be able to express those emotions and have him be there for you in that time is beautiful, if I can say that in that way. I hope that comes
Yeah.
across the right way.
Look, there are so many moments like at the time you it was horrible and you're thinking, how did we get here? But looking
Mm,
back, I'm really grateful for the space and time that we had because I moved into hospital with him
mm,
the last few days that
mm.
he was alive. And in a hospital room where there's nurses coming in and doing obs every so often, and you've got
Yeah.
things hooked up, and you're in this bubble.
Mm,
And I'm actually really grateful for that time
mm,
because I don't know what else was going on in the world at that time. We were together, we were in this bubble, and I'm just I'm in the in the rawness of it all.
yeah.
And hospital room is hardly a romantic setting um to to get married and do all the things that we did. But like
Mm,
I'm grateful that we had that space and time together because
yeah.
that's where we talked about things. That's where
Mm,
we were really just both of us present. And people would visit and come and go, but um yeah, it's taken a lot of work and healing and stepping through to get to a point where you can actually go, I really valued that time that we had together rather than
mm,
it being the worst time at and that being
yeah.
my go-to.
Yeah. A hospital room to get married. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So we decided when we were told we had 6 to 8 months that we want to get married. We want to spend this time
Mm,
as husband and wife. We
yeah.
were together for 14 years, Marie, and it just seemed
Well.
like what ain't broke, don't fix it. It was something
Mm,
we talked about doing at some point. Like we talked
mhm.
about traveling to New Zealand and
Yeah.
doing lots of other things. So it was in our plan,
Mhm.
but it didn't quite go the way we thought. So
Yeah.
we ended up planning our wedding, but Craig's health deteriorated so rapidly that we ended up
Mm,
having to bring our wedding forward and got married in hospital. In he couldn't even get out of bed,
mm.
um, and he died the following day.
Wow.
So
You
it was
told me in our pre-chat a little bit about how magical that was that it actually all came together. Do you want to share a
oh
little bit here as well? Because that just blew my mind.
it it seemed like it wasn't going to be possible because
Mm,
things were unfolding rapidly, and it was a long weekend in June. And the Monday of that long weekend, we're told we should be planning to get married within the next 24 to 48 hours. And
mhm,
the celebrant we'd already applied to have our wedding earlier than the designated time frame that you have to apply for a wedding license, right?
mhm.
Or a marriage license. And I'm thinking it's not going to happen. Like it's a public holiday. Nothing is open.
Yeah.
I've pretty well in the back of my mind just locked away. This isn't going to happen. It's not working. But on the Tuesday morning, the social worker at the hospital came to see me and said, "Do you have your celebrant's phone number?" And I said, "Yep." And I gave it to her, and she said, "I'll take care of things." And she went away, and I'm just 100% focused on what's going on with Craig.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, I get a phone call from the celebrant, and it's like, I don't know, 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. And he says, okay, we can do this. I've got permission to come, and I can marry you today. What time do you want me to come in?
Now.
And I was blown away by that, because I
Mm,
just had thought it's not going to be possible. Things are happening really quickly. And I joke about it now and say, if you want to get married, like, go to the Royal Adelaide Hospital, because they organise
oh,
things,
oh my God.
Yeah. So it was that they moved mountains to help us make it happen. They knew how important it was to us.
Mm.
And yeah, it was it was just fantastic that we could make it happen.
I love that. I love when miracles like that just happen, because I feel there are so many different forces at play here to bring that all together. And having a nurse like that, or the social worker help you out with that, it's just so beautiful because in a time like that, it really shows the true humans in people around you, supporting you in a good and in a bad way. But I love to focus on those beautiful stories like you just shared, and it's just really amazing. I love that it all happened in time and that you got that wish granted for the two of you, because it obviously meant so much to you and so much to Craig to do that before his time was over here. And I am such a sucker for romance, so I absolutely love it. I absolutely love that part of the story. So thank you for sharing that with us. Jodie, I have noticed in my own story that friendships, connections can often change dramatically in both ways after an experience like that. I have had closest friends drop off that I never thought I'd ever lose in my life. I had friends come in to support me that I'd never thought they'd be there for me in my life. I had literally both ends of the story and everything in between. How did you experience the support system after Craig passed over?
It's Grief is such a unique experience, but the similarities and consistencies across people's stories never ceases to amaze me, because
Mm,
everybody that I know reports people pulling back and disappearing,
mhm,
and almost strangers presenting at
mhm,
this time and showing up on your doorstep.
mm.
And the people you think will be there are not, and the most unlikely people turn up and
Yeah.
and create these moments where you're just going, who are you? Where did you come from? And why? you know,
Mm,
and those similar questions of the people you think that would be rallying around you. It's
mm,
so bizarre. Um, and I think it's easy to focus on the people that drop away rather than focus on the
mm.
ones that present. So I like to think, well, there's a reason why that happened.
Yeah.
And I don't need to know what that is. I don't need to unpack it. I'm going
Mm,
to focus on the people who are in my circle, who have been in my
yeah.
life, who have come and stayed, and the people who have come along the journey, people who have kind of met like yourself as you go through this path. And,
Mm.
I prefer to focus on that than
Likewise.
the people, some people go, I was just actually um, looking at a grief group on social media before
Mhm,
our session
mhm.
today, and I talked about, some people never come back from the peripheral. They
Mhm.
they went there, they stay there, and they may have made that choice, but we also might have made the choice to leave them there too,
Yeah.
because part of that healing journey is like growing a new skin. You shed.
Mm,
You're not the
mm.
same version of yourself as you were.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah.
So that in itself, the change that you go through, um, we leave behind outdated beliefs, we leave behind outdated views, we leave
Mm,
behind relationships that are no longer serving us.
yeah.
And I
Oh, very
think
much
it's
so.
all part of that process of finding the new you. and the
Mm.
new way forward. Yeah.
And priorities shift so tremendously, like in a blink of an eye, all of a sudden things that you thought were important are just so mundane. And I think there's nothing that highlights the true essence of you and the beauty of life more than grief. This was my experience, because all of a
Mm.
sudden you realize I so often talk about the irony of grief. And for me, the irony of grief is when you realize through the loss of a loved one how precious life is. We all know it, but there is no deeper depth to realizing the preciousness of life than losing somebody so close to you. And then you realize how precious life is.
Yeah.
And this is your choice right there, right then. So, what do you do with your life now? Knowing that it could be over in a heartbeat. We all know it, but we don't really truly understand till it actually happens
Exactly.
in such a short time, or even sudden, like it was in my case. So, there is that to me where I'm like, this is the irony of grief. You now know how precious life is, and you choose to stay stuck in grief. Why? Why don't you live the life? Because
Oh,
your loved one can't do that anymore. I don't understand why you don't. This is my most beautiful way of honoring Rob, to live life like it was, like every day, like it was my last day. And of course, I don't do that every day, but it's my North Star. It's
yeah.
really my lighthouse in my darkest hour, to just focus on creating beauty and love and joy and connection and happiness and all those things, because it's way too easy to focus on all the negative things. But what joy does that bring? And
No,
what
I
does
hear
that
you.
do for my husband? Nothing.
100%.
Mm,
I think everyone has their unique experience, and I feel like it's easy for us to go, well, this is my thoughts and my feeling
mm,
about it. So I'm going to share that. And I want people to come along with me on this journey. But there's
yeah.
also people that, I'm watching a lot of grief content because I
Mm,
want to hear what the conversation is looking like and evolving, because
yeah.
I want to shift the conversation from
Mm,
outdated beliefs and social programming. I call it societal programming. The reason why
mm,
people say the same things over and over again, like
yeah.
they've had a good innings or they're in a better place or you've just got to stay strong. Like those things are
Mm,
not helpful comments,
no.
yet they regurgitated over and over again because somebody heard somebody say that, and
Yeah.
that's
That's the
what you do.
things to say, right?
Yeah.
My
So
condolences. I'm sorry for
exactly.
your loss.
Yeah. And
Oh,
trying to shift away from that um, is is a slow turning wheel. Like
mm,
I can see that it is shifting. I can see that there
yeah.
is a we are stepping into a new way of thinking,
Mm,
but there's a long way to go.
yeah. I
There are
agree.
people,
There's so much to be said about grief language, like how we address it, how we talk about it, makes such a difference. And most of the grief language that we use, from our outdated society beliefs, are all door closing. They don't open a conversation. They don't allow you in. They don't create that space for you to share how you're actually doing. Everything is just a closing a door, even just a my condolences. That's
yeah,
not really a conversation starter. It very
no,
much closes the door and draws the line. This is you. This is me now. You're now over there with them.
yep,
And there's such a stigma around that. Like me going to a party where I haven't met anyone before and then introducing myself. I still need to work on that icebreaker seriously, because every time, as soon as because I work in the space of grief, so when
yes,
I talk about that, the usual follow up question is, how did you get into that? Well, my husband died. Oh, and the energy in the room drops and it gets a little bit colder and people turn away, and I'm like, why is it like that? It is such a shame. There's instant sympathy, empathy. I absolutely get that, but that sympathy and the drawing the line.
the
um, I would
discomfort.
love to.
You can,
Yeah,
yeah,
you can see. Yeah, absolutely. People are so uncomfortable with talking about it. Um, and that is my beautiful segue to, have you met my grief?
yeah.
Share a little bit about the work that you have put out there. And I love what you do, Jodie. So please share a little bit about the journey to writing the book. And yeah.
So when I was going through my raw grief early, kind of trying to work out what to do with this new existence and wondering my camera's dropping.
Yeah. This is live,
Sorry.
everyone. It's all good.
Oh my goodness. Um, and trying to work out where I fit. People
Mhm.
were commenting on me sharing my grief experience on social media and
Yeah.
saying that they were learning a lot from what I was sharing.
Mm.
So I was told you should write a book.
Mm.
So I finally listened to that, and
Mhm.
oh my goodness, Lorraine, I'm so sorry.
This is
Uh,
all good. I love it. It's just such a proof that we're doing this live. Nothing's pre-recorded here. You know, it all adds to it. We are all
I'll just
humans here.
stand here and talk to you. And so
Perfect.
it was yeah, learning from my experience, people were saying, we're
Mm.
learning a lot, you should write a book. So I started to
Yeah.
listen to that advice and I
Mm.
started writing my book.
How
And
early into it was that on your journey? Just so we understand the
I
timeline.
started April 2020,
Wow.
started the researching process.
Hmm.
And like by research, I mean interviewing other widows
Mm.
and talking to them about their experiences.
Yeah.
And then I went into yeah, I got a writing coach to help me keep me accountable.
Hmm.
And I published the book in January of 2021.
Wow.
Launched the book in 2021.
Round of
And
applause.
then I don't know, a couple of years later, like the creativity was pouring out of me. I'd written the book,
Mm.
I was doing a lot of writing poetry and oh, I just had this idea to write a cabaret show about a completely different topic. And someone suggested that that topic was probably not great. I was thinking about COVID,
Mm.
and it had been done to death. So they were sort of like,
Mm.
have you got anything else that you could bring to the space? And I was like, well, I wrote a book about grief. And they said, right, that we want to talk about because
Wow.
there's not enough of that content.
I couldn't agree
So
more. I love
that
that though, that they were open to that. This is so incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
Were you in cabaret before?
No, not really. No,
Wow.
I had done performing back in the day, but
Yeah.
it was one of those things I had shelved for a really long time because, I
Hmm.
had a family.
Yeah.
I had my own business working in health and fitness at the time. It just
Hmm.
seemed like one of those things I would get around to doing one day, not um not now. You know what I mean? It was always
Yeah.
a thing to do later on. But when it came, it was just like, no, this is what I want to do. I think it's another great avenue, another platform to have this conversation, and I'm really keen to embrace it. And I'm so glad I did because it
And
has both have landed how I wanted them to. You know how you have that feeling of I hope this goes across how I want it
yeah,
to. I hope it's
yeah.
received how I intend it, and
But you
both
can
have.
tell how much it was needed because I watched some of your YouTube clips about your show and I thought, wow, like I watched the audience reaction, when they interview them after the show. And I thought, this is so beautiful and so needed. We do need, I think humor in grief is really healing. It is
Yes.
so needed. And I shared this a couple of times now, but I actually joined a widow's humor group after Rob died. One of my clients actually put me onto it and she's like, Marie, you got to check out this group. It went a little bit downhill after a while, so I left again. But in the first, I don't know, I probably joined it about 2019, 2020. Rob passed in 2018.
Yeah.
And I stayed probably for half a year or a year. But there was such really some very light, some very dark humor, but a sort of humor that you only get when you're a widow yourself. So I think it was quite good that it was in a closed Facebook group for some of the
Yeah.
things. But for you to bring that on stage and make it a topic for everyone to talk about and bring more lightness into that topic and open the door to conversations that are so needed. I absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. How was it for you the very first time you performed it? That would have been so nerve
Oh,
wracking,
it's very
putting a
nervous.
topic out there
Yeah.
that is so. taboo,
yeah,
actually.
nervous, but yeah, I come off stage and I was just like, oh wow, like, and yeah, the response afterwards was,
Mm,
I guess, so validating because it did land
mm,
how I wanted it to. It was received how I
beautiful.
wanted. And people had their own interpretation of what's going on. Like they've taken what I shared and applied it to their own story. And
Yeah.
that I think is where I think what I learned from listening to other people and consuming other content from other people who've gone through grief, like Nora
Mm,
McInerney. And in particular, she was somebody that I really felt I connected to in my
yeah.
grief. She um, gave me the gift of words that I didn't know how to
Hmm.
describe my situation. So it was like
Yeah.
when you can actually give someone the ability to say, that's how I feel, that's how I think,
Mm,
that is
I
the
love that.
gift. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, if we can all pay that forward in some way, I think that
Mm.
makes such a big difference. Yeah.
100%. I think anything that opens conversations to topics that are usually not talked about, anything I wholeheartedly embrace because I really feel it is so necessary. And in particular, because there is still this outdated belief that we have to stay stuck in grief, and that's the only and best way that is acceptable to honor our loved ones. I couldn't agree less with that statement. And I was very lucky. I consider myself very lucky that Rob and I actually got the chance to talk about what if about 3 years prior, not knowing at all that this would ever happen, because we would be that couple on the retirement brochure walking hand in hand on the beach when we were in our 70s. I was absolutely convinced that that would be
Yeah.
us. But yeah, that was not the plan that we had chosen on a soul level. That's how I want to describe it. And it's just something where I now see so much purpose in all of that. Why so many people stay stuck in the why as well. I'm not really sure how you dealt with that. Did you have that experience with why? Why did it happen? And or was that not ever on your
Um,
forefront?
I would imagine back then I probably was,
Mm,
because but now, like, I don't know. I used to think to myself, he's going to come home. He's coming
mm,
home. He's just going to walk
yeah.
through the door any minute. And I went, this is a really bad game to play. I don't think
Mm,
this is a good idea to play the what ifs, the whys.
mm,
It's not real.
yeah.
Like, it's not a healthy game to play.
Yeah.
It's not going to deliver a great outcome. So I learned to not do that after
Mm,
a little while of one it's, if it's not, yeah, just a little bit of
yeah.
trying to make sense of everything. And I don't know, it's just one of those things that I did,
Yeah.
and then went, yeah, let's not do that anymore. It's not going to deliver the outcome we want.
What
um
can people expect from your book? Have you
from
met my
my
grief?
book, it's been described as validating,
Mm,
normalizing,
mm,
and basically making people think and see that they're not alone in what they're
yeah.
experiencing, but also that um, the things that people say are very consistent across the board. And
Mm,
what is more helpful, chapter 5 is all about how friends and family can unlearn the things not to do
love it.
and
Love it.
learn things that are more helpful based on the advice given from other widows
Mm,
and my own experience in pushing back on
yep.
that. Some boundary setting, learning. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
That's all good. I find it
It's
quite funny.
not
You just do that
good.
for entertainment. I understand. It's the cabaret in you.
I wish I'm much more. And the Virgo in me is quite annoyed about this whole
Oh,
process,
I'm a
actually.
Virgo as well.
Are
I
you?
find it quite amusing. Don't worry about it. It's all
Oh,
life. I love it. It
I
adds to that.
know. And we had
Mm,
so much issue with this before. we started
Doesn't
this,
matter.
and I thought I had, and it kind of lasted a little while okay there for a bit, didn't it? But yes, it's not being friendly now.
It's the camera telling us we're way over time, but it doesn't matter. I wanna wrap this up. I do want to hear about it.
It's the speaker's equivalent to just pulling the plug on the microphone. You've gone over time. Wrap it
Yeah,
up.
no. Wrapping it up, I do want to hand this back to you, though, the microphone. I would love to know for people listening in and feeling this, oh my goodness, thank God there are two women talking about something that I actually feel and didn't know where to take it. What would you like to say to them? This is if you know, this is the whole scenario. If you only take one thing away from this conversation, this would be it. No pressure.
I think, no, I've thought about this long and hard, actually.
Mm,
And I feel like getting to that place of how do you get through it? Because
mm,
you can't outrun it. You can't go under it, over it, around. You got to go
mm.
through this.
Yeah.
But I 100% believe that finding aligned support and
Mm,
focusing on spending some time healing
mm.
is key. You can't build a house on shaky foundation. So you're not going to rebuild your new identity, your new chapter on a shaky foundation either.
Mm,
So if you find yourself falling into the same grief hole over and over again, and you're constantly feeling like the pressure points are being pressed, things that
mm,
people say upset you, scenarios, life events that come in the future, that trigger responses, find a way to work through those things, because you will constantly find, even 6, 7 years later, there are things that happen now to me,
mm,
and I'm reminded of Craig's absence. But I've
mm.
done enough work that they don't put me back in the hole.
Yeah.
They're just little speed humps now. And
I
I,
love that you keep that so real, Jodie, because to me, it's never about, oh, the grief will last forever. It's about,
yes,
it comes in waves, it comes
yeah,
and goes. And for me, there is this exactly what you just said, to learn how to slow down when those speed humps come.
mm,
And if they come unexpectedly, to, go into self care and allow that to happen, allow that in, just as all
100%.
the other emotions, the joy, the
And
happiness, the beautiful memories.
absolutely. But I don't believe
Mm,
that we have to grieve forever. I
I don't
believe
either.
that we can move through that to the point
Mm,
where, it doesn't mean that you've forgotten. Like
absolutely.
you don't forget that you learned to drive a car or went to school and did
Mm,
all these other life experiences. You're not going to forget this either, but it's
yeah.
about your relationship and how you connect to it. And if you connect to it from a place of pain, you are
Mm,
probably going to find that it is a painful thing moving forward. But if you choose to connect in it from a different place, like connect from love, it's a much healthier
mm,
and gratifying space.
yeah. And
Um,
don't forget the self-love and all of that either.
yeah,
I always want to say that, not so much to you because I know you know it, but to the audience listening in here. There is so much love in all of that as well. And I think, as you said before, Jodie, we can choose what we focus on, what we
we
put our
do have a
attention to.
choice. We didn't
Yeah.
choose what happened to us and what happened to our person.
Mm,
Like we would never have chosen this,
mm,
but we do have a choice about how we navigate from here.
yeah. I love this. Jodie, I can't thank you enough for being here. I'm really, really grateful that you shared your perspective. I love that you and I are speaking such similar language. And for those who feel drawn to it, I'm so grateful that you're here, that you're listening, that you found this conversation and have the validation that it is okay to handle your grief differently and allow joy and healing and happiness back into your life. So, this is live at the moment, as you could tell. And we will be sharing Jodie's bio and all the links where you can find her book as soon as we finish this conversation. So if you're watching this live, come back in 10, 15 minutes. It'll all be there. So you can get your hands on a copy of Do You Know My Grief?
Have you met my
So
grief?
Have You Met My Grief? Sorry,
Yeah,
I
it's all
messed it up in the last one.
right.
Have You Met My Grief? So
It's
Jodie,
all
thank you
good.
so much for being here. If you guys enjoy what you're hearing here, please subscribe to my channel for weekly updates on unsilenced grief. This is Jodie and Marie